In the big wide world of great game music, there are certain pieces that stand out for being particularly special. Rosalina in the Observatory from Super Mario Galaxy truly is one of the all-time greats of the video game musical canon. Its melody is as beautiful as it is memorable, and the use of live orchestra for the first time in a Mario game allows a positively dreamy sonic palette. The feeling that composer Koji Kondo captures with this piece is magical. How does he do it? By using musical techniques that evoke the sound of the gold and silver ages of Disney princess movies. From the first full-length animated feature from Disney, 1937's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, to 1959's Sleeping Beauty, the last fairy tale story produced by the studio before Walt Disney's death in 1966, there's a recurring theme of wishing and dreaming that runs through these films. Songs like I'm Wishing, Someday My Prince Will Come, When You Wish Upon a Star, A Dream is a Wish Your Heart Makes, Once Upon a Dream. The music from these films sets out to capture the spirit of dreaming, of making a wish and having it come true, by taking certain techniques from the composers of the Romantic era, like Tchaikovsky, Liszt, Chopin, Saint-Saëns, and others. This era of Disney films established a musical vocabulary that successfully captures this magical feeling, and it's this vocabulary that Rosalina's theme taps into. There's a lot that goes into the stylistic conventions of any kind of music, but if I had to boil down this style into one figure, it would be this. To explain exactly what this is, we'll have to first go over two melodic techniques, chromatic approach notes and appoggiaturas. First, the chromatic approach note. When we talk about a melody moving by step, we mean that each note moves to the next by moving one step up or down the scale of whatever key we're in. So if we're in the key of C, you'd move by either a whole step or a half step depending on what note of the C major scale you're starting on and moving to. If you decide, screw this, I'm going up by a half step even if that first note isn't part of the right scale. That is a chromatic approach note. Coming from outside the key makes this note sound a lot more dissonant, but that just makes moving back into the key with the following note sound like a big release. Certain styles of music incorporate the chromatic approach note as a key part of their sound, notably the music of the Romantic period, the era spanning roughly from the year 1800 to 1910. Take the love theme from Tchaikovsky's Romeo and Juliet, where the strings explode up to this high A over a D over A chord, only instead of landing right on this A, they take two full beats to sit on the G sharp a half step below, the sharp fourth of the underlying chord. This is, in my mind, the pinnacle of musical drama and a beautiful example of a chromatic approach note charging up a melody with emotional energy, but most uses of this technique aren't quite as pronounced. A more common approach would be like the one found in So This Is Love, the song that plays when Cinderella dances with the prince at the royal ball. The melody walks up a B7 arpeggio and then resolves down to a G sharp, the third of our tonic E chord. But just before the expected note, we dip down just a semitone too far as a pickup to the resolution. This G natural is not part of the key of E major, but it quickly resolves back up to our G sharp. This chromatic approach note is short, but it colors the whole phrase with this romantic waltz feeling.
The key to all heaven is one.
The main melodic motif of Pinocchio's When You Wish Upon a Star uses the same idea, taking the melodic note you expect to come next and instead landing a half step below before resolving up to the proper note.
When you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are.
These chromatic approaches simultaneously add a levity to the music as well as a deep beauty, taking each song into the arena of wishes and dreams. The chromatic approach note in bar 4 of When You Wish Upon a Star is underscored with a harmonic fakeout, the tonic E major chord we expect, traded out for a surprising E diminished chord, which then resolves to the major chord we expected.
Makes no difference who you are.
This is an extremely common figure in this golden age of Disney music. You'll hear it in Cinderella's A Dream is a Wish Your Heart Makes.
A dream is a wish your heart makes.
As well as in Sleeping Beauty's I Wonder, which was adapted from Tchaikovsky's ballet of the same name.
I wonder why each little bird has a someone to...
You'll also hear it in Rosalina's Observatory, towards the end of the first phrase. Our 5 chord in the key of D, A7, sets up a resolution to our tonic that does come, but we first get a full bar of D diminished 7. Notice how the melody outlines this move by dipping down to an F natural in this bar, the flat third of the key. Every time I hear this kind of tonic diminished resolution, I find it just delightful. The second melodic technique that we should understand is the appoggiatura. Like the chromatic approach note, this involves a melody landing on a note not found in the underlying chord, and then resolving to a nice consonant chord tone right after. The difference is that an appoggiatura is typically a non-chord tone that's still inside the key that we sit on to really milk the dissonance before resolving down to a chord tone, whereas a chromatic approach note is usually a quicker passing note that resolves up to a chord tone from a note outside the key. A Dream is a Wish Your Heart Makes from Cinderella shows us a beautiful 2-to-1 appoggiatura over the minor 4 chord. Towards the end of its melody, this accented B-flat note resolves down to an A-flat over an A-flat minor 6 chord. Every part of this is just gorgeous.
No matter how your heart is grieving, if you keep on believing.
Let's check out the appoggiatura found in the second bar of the absolutely beautiful melody from Camille Saint-Saëns' Le Seine, an E note on beat 1, resolving down to the 5th over our tonic G chord, a D, on beat 2. We see a similar type of structure pop up in Rosalina's Observatory over this A7 chord, with the melody landing on the 4th on the downbeats and rolling off onto the 3rd on beat 2. If we combined these two techniques into one, we would get a figure where a note from outside the key comes in and wants to resolve up to a note inside the key, but instead leaps up to the note above where we want to land on and sits there for a beat or two before resolving down finally to our consonant chord tone. This is the figure I showed you at the very beginning of the video, and it's a core part to the melody of Rosalina's Observatory, as well as a handful of other pieces that we'll look at. Rosalina's theme shows us this figure first as a way to resolve to our tonic D, and then immediately after does the same figure resolving to a B, with a chromatic A sharp beneath and the following sharp 4th over our G chord, C sharp, giving the phrase an insane amount of color in such a short time. In the following phrase, this same figure moves up to give us a juicy 2-to-1 appoggiatura over our minor 4 chord, G minor, in a very similar fashion to A Dream is a Wish Your Heart Makes. This has got to be one of my favorite kinds of melodic moves of all time. Back in Disneyland, we'll see this exact same motif used in A Dream is a Wish Your Heart Makes. The melody gives us a little chromatic neighbor motion right off the bat, taking the 5th of our tonic E flat chord, B flat, dipping down to an A natural, which is not in the key, and then coming right back up, before leaping up to a G over this beautiful G over E flat chord. Then we approach our tonic E flat note with this semitone below to appoggiatura above figure.
A dream is a wish your heart makes.
The following 2 bars shows the same approach used to resolve to a C in a slightly different rhythmic configuration, and then the whole initial melodic figure is bumped up a step to the key of F minor for the following phrase.
A dream is a wish your heart makes when you're fast asleep. In dreams you will
Snow White's Someday My Prince Will Come uses this exact same melodic idea as the basis for its melody, but the 3/4 waltz time and initial bass motion of the root moving up to the third and then moving to the 4 chord draws very clear parallels to Rosalina's Observatory.
Someday my prince will come. Someday we'll meet again, and away to his castle we'll go, to be happy forever, I know.
Going farther back in history, Tchaikovsky's Waltz of the Flowers from the Nutcracker Suite exemplifies the musical attitude of this kind of romantic waltz, and you'll find the same kind of figure and similar melodic ideas sprinkled all throughout the piece. It's no wonder why this figure keeps popping up all over this kind of music. It's absolutely gorgeous. I've read online that people seem to think Rosalina's Observatory was very heavily influenced by Waltz of the Flowers, but I don't think that's quite right. I overloaded this video with examples from different pieces to try and show that while there are some very direct similarities between Rosalina's theme and others, Someday My Prince Will Come in particular, I don't see Rosalina's theme as being a rip-off of any other piece. It's simply accessing the tradition of this dreamy, romantic style of music, and so uses the vocabulary that all the pieces written in this style use. The Romantics were clearly a huge inspiration for Disney composers of this era. Almost all of the music from Sleeping Beauty is taken directly from Tchaikovsky's ballet of the same name, and A Dream is a Wish Your Heart Makes is a transformation of the main theme from Liszt's Transcendental Etude No. 9. All this music is part of the same lineage. People are so concerned now with writing music that's too similar to something else, no thanks to Marvin Gaye's estate. But at the end of the day, are you glad that Rosalina's Observatory exists? Would you rather just listen to the Snow White soundtrack while you play Mario? No, of course not. It's a masterful piece of music. Similarities to earlier works be damned. Imagine if you applied the same ideas to orchestration. As you progress through Super Mario Galaxy, the music in Rosalina's Observatory evolves with more and more intricate instrumentation, culminating with this huge lush string melody, staccato horn chords on beats 2 and 3, and counterlines in the flutes and cellos, all layering together beautifully. Would you listen to this and say, oh, Koji Kondo stole the orchestration from Tchaikovsky's Waltz of the Flowers? No, of course not. This is just how you orchestrate this kind of piece. If you want your music to sound a certain way, you need to do the things that make it sound a certain way. Everyone understands that when it comes to orchestration or instrumentation, but I think the same things apply for the melody and harmony of a piece. Of course, a piece needs its own identity, but Rosalina's Observatory definitely has its own identity. While video game music certainly has its own tradition, I love seeing pieces access our greater musical history to bring back sounds and styles that we otherwise wouldn't hear much in the modern day. It's in accessing this older musical tradition that Rosalina's Observatory has made itself timeless. My man Koji Kondo did it again. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please consider checking out my Patreon page here, and I'll see you all in the next one.